Today, we're jumping right into a really persistent historical pattern. Specifically, the way foundational Black American activists get disproportionately labeled as extremists or dangerous.
Right. And just to be clear for everyone, when we say foundational Black Americans or FBAs, we're talking about the descendants of enslaved Africans here in the United States.
Exactly. So we're diving into sources that track how this stigma has been, well, intentionally applied for decades.
Yeah, our mission here is really to distill how this pattern shows up. You see it in government action, in law enforcement tactics, and of course in media rhetoric. The sources make it pretty clear that this specific group's push against systemic racism has been met with the most punitive level of labeling.
Okay, so let's unpack that history. The sources show this isn't new at all. It dates back heavily to the 1950s and 60s.
Precisely. You see this clear historical precedent with the FBI's COINTELPRO.
The counterintelligence program.
That's the one. It was designed to neutralize political dissent, and it deliberately targeted figures like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and the Black Panther Party. They were vilified with terms like dangerous subversives or even Black supremacists.
And the sources are clear that this vilification, it just ignored the actual power dynamics on the ground, right?
Absolutely. I mean, take the Black Panther Party. They were constantly depicted in FBI memos and the media as some kind of armed extremist cult.
But that wasn't the full picture.
Not even close. Critics point out that this rhetoric completely ignored the community programs they were organizing, while law enforcement was using aggressive, disruptive tactics against them. The vilification was a tool.
A tool to neutralize political action. So if that was the history, let's bring it to today. How does this exact dynamic play out now in the media?
It's basically a sustained tactic, just with new targets. Modern movements, like Black Lives Matter, have faced these constant campaigns. You see it from certain media outlets where commentators would repeatedly call BLM Marxist or claim they wanted to overthrow the United States.
And we saw a huge point of contrast after the January 6th Capitol riot. There was this push from some commentators to draw an equivalence.
Right, an equivalence between far-right violence and civil rights marches.
But the data doesn't support that.
The data in our sources consistently challenges that idea. I mean, critics point out that reliable polls show nearly all BLM demonstrations have been peaceful. But on the other hand, you have white supremacist violence from events like Charlottesville or El Paso, which is a well-documented domestic terror threat. The framing is just completely different.
So it's not just rhetoric. How have authorities actually institutionalized this kind of surveillance?
They formalized it. In 2017, they created the Black Identity Extremist Classification, or BIE.
BA classification.
Yes, and civil rights groups immediately pointed out that the FBI had, well, no evidence of any organized group that actually fit that label.
So the sources suggest it was really just a way to monitor Black protesters without a concrete reason.
That's the argument. You can see how it functions like COINTELPRO by just looking at resource allocation. FBI data itself shows white supremacists commit far more domestic violence and homicides, but the institutional focus was put on this invented BIE threat.
And that trickled down to the local level, too.
It did. You see tactics like in Memphis, where police admitted to using fake social media profiles and a whole PowerPoint, believe it or not, called Blue Suede Shoes, just to infiltrate and monitor BLM organizers.
So let's wrap this up. What does this all mean for you, the listener? The key takeaway really seems to be this massive double standard.
It is. The sources reveal that while other movements, even armed white militias, can get a more nuanced, sometimes even sympathetic framing, Black demands for justice are almost pathologized. They're framed as inherently extreme or insurrectionary.
Which creates a climate where legitimate claims get shut down.
Exactly. It creates a climate where raising issues like reparations or police accountability, which are rightful justice claims, can be immediately dismissed as some kind of radical ideology.
And that really leads to this final provocative thought for you to mull on. Why is it that the call by the oppressed to change a racist system is so frequently met with the label supremacist, whereas demands from the privileged are often just treated as normal political negotiation? Something to think about.